All right. Thank you everybody for joining tonight. We're so excited to see many of you here, and particularly excited to see my old buddy Stacy here, who, if I do say so myself, has fabulous hair, and the city attorney. We're really, really excited to see her here this evening. We are going to just do a couple minutes of housekeeping and jump right in because I think she has to leave us around 7:30. So please introduce yourselves in the chat. You can put in your name, your pronouns if you want, your organization, your neighborhood council, what brought you here tonight, all that good stuff. We are, if you don't know us, we are the LA Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance. Our mission is to advance sustainability and resilience throughout the city of LA, and we do that through advocacy, through sharing of best practices, and through community action. Housekeeping, we are recording this and it will be posted on our YouTube channel. You can add your name to your little Zoom square if you want. We probably won't have, we normally are very conversational, but we have a series of pre-identified questions for the city attorney and pre-identified people to ask those questions. So this is not going to be our normal chit-chat format, also because she has to leave earlier than we had hoped. So we're probably going to be a little bit more structured than we typically are. But if we have any time for some back and forth, that's certainly what we prefer. So we'll see how it goes. And the chat is open. You're welcome to use the chat, but we also have some community agreements that we'll get to in a minute. We also have an evaluation form that we will share with you, so keep that in mind as we're doing this. Oh, and if Charles or any of the board members can put that in the chat, that would be great. So that's the bulk of our meeting tonight. We'll be talking with her. After that, we'll have some community, some committee reports and some announcements, and then we'll do our evaluations, and that should be about it. Our community agreements, which I'm hoping somebody can put in the chat, are, if you can, please turn on your camera and, so we can build community as we are together tonight. Assume good intent, give folks the benefit of the doubt. I think that's really, really important. Demonstrate respect and appreciation. Refrain, we love the chat, we use the chat, but please refrain from having super tangential conversations, like stay, with the conversation. And related to that, listen intently, step forward and then step back, meaning give people space, but also, take space. Be concise, and of course, most importantly, have fun. And I want to super briefly give our board members an opportunity to introduce themselves. And I think then I will introduce our Stacy and our city attorney, and then we'll give them a couple minutes to speak, and then we'll jump into the questions. Let's see, Muriel, could you please introduce yourself super briefly?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Muriel Nakar. I'm a steering board member at the NCSA. I'm the Transportation Committee Chair. I was formerly part of the Echo Park Neighborhood Council, and I'm involved with Hi-Fi, historic Filipino town. So it's part of Echo Park.
Thank you very much. And Aurora.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Aurora Corona. I'm with the Pico Union Neighborhood Council, but more importantly, I am a board member for the NCSA. And I'm involved in a lot of things, but my main goal is really community outreach in the Pico Union area.
Thank you very much. And Charles.
Everybody, most of you guys know me, Charles Miller. I'm on the board. I'm also the chair of the Green Committee at the Palms Neighborhood Council, and on that board, I'm involved with the Trees Committee for NCSA, and I'm also the chair of Los Angeles Climate Reality Project.
Thank you. And Alex.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Tangelos. I'm a board member of the NCSA, and I'm also currently the chair of the Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council Sustainability Committee.
Thank you very much. And And I'd love to introduce Stacy and the city attorney. And Charles or somebody, if you guys could spotlight
on
them.
it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Stacy is truly a buddy of mine. She used to be on the Mar Vista Community Council. She was instrumental in developing sustainability guidelines for developers and really instrumental in sharing them with folks across the neighborhood council system. And if somebody can put those in the chat, that would be great. I'd really appreciate that. And honestly, you guys, I mean, I'm not going to go into it, but she's really supported me in other areas of my life. So I really, really, really do appreciate Stacy. She's been super supportive to me in many domains of my life.
Hi, great to see you. Great to see a lot of friends here. Can I take 1 minute, Lisa, that has nothing to do with our city attorney? We do have the developer sustainable guidelines. It's a living document. And if Lisa wants to update it, I'd love to work with a working group. We have to bring up net zero carbon initiatives in it. There's a lot of areas we could work on. So just keep me in mind, Lisa, we should probably reconvene and get that going. I'd love to do it.
Yes, there are many things we should be doing that we are not doing. Isn't that, I mean, that's very true, but yes, thank you.
And call out
Fantastic.
Brandy. Hi, Brandy. I see you. You do great work.
And the city attorney, she probably does not remember this, but she has been doing, and if you don't know, she is one of the hardest workers I have ever met. And I did meet her once at city council. I think it had to be 2018. I somehow managed to get on one of her email lists. And I was just amazed by being on this email list. It was so obvious. And this is what I shared with her when I met her. I just remember she was very, 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 very petite, very short is what I recall. And what I told her, I was just so surprised by her emails because it was obvious that she was such a hard worker, so detail oriented, so thorough, so committed. And so I've always been struck by that and very, 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 very impressed by her for that reason. So I just know that about her because it shows. So I just really am, I know how much you have on your plate, and I am really appreciative that you're here. And I wanted to give you a very, very few short minutes because we have very little time to talk to us a little bit about your role in the office. And I think that's really about it to set the tone, and then we'll jump into the questions. So thank you.
I'll be brief. My name's Hydee Feldstein Soto. I was elected in November of 2022, and I was a member of the Pico Neighborhood Council for a number of years
Yes, I
before
meant to say that, yes.
City LA. And I was relatively active as a neighborhood council member and in Sacramento politics. Since I have a lot of questions, I want to make just a couple of housekeeping notes about my role as a lawyer. As the city attorney for the city of Los Angeles, I have precisely two clients. Client number one is the municipal corporation that is the city of Los Angeles. And it's a very big job, and I won't go into it in depth because I know that people want to get to questions. But with respect to the municipal corporation that is the city of Los Angeles, I owe a duty of loyalty, a duty of confidentiality, and my communications with other branches of the city, other departments, other electeds are subject to the attorney-client privilege. They can talk about it all they want, whether it's accurate or not. I can't. And so oftentimes someone in one of the departments will say, oh, we sent that over to the city attorney's office months ago. Yeah, no, that's not exactly accurate. Not all of the time, but I cannot defend myself. I'm not in a position to say that's not true. Both because of the duty of loyalty and because the only way I know it's not true is a privileged communication with my client. So when it comes to advice that I give the city or things that are in process or things in negotiation, what I can say is extraordinarily limited. Same thing with litigation, where I am representing the city of Los Angeles. I do not control the attorney-client privilege, city council does. And so when it comes to pending litigation in my capacity as counsel for the city, I can say very little. I occasionally, but rarely if I'm representing the city, will announce when a lawsuit is filed or announce when something is resolved. But I tend not to talk about litigation by or against the city. The other client that I have is the people of the state of California. And when it comes to the people, I am a prosecutor, and I don't have a client within the attorney-client privilege per se. What I have is a duty of independence to act in the public interest for the public benefit and on behalf of the people. And so most of the specific matters that I can talk about are areas where I'm representing the people, either criminal matters or public rights matters, where I bring an action for civil enforcement in the name of the people. That tends to be environmental justice, consumer protection, nuisance abatement. I mean, it's the kinds of actions that I bring in the name of the people of the state. The scope of the office is enormous. As I like to say, each of the three proprietaries all by themselves would be Fortune 1000 companies. So the airports, the port, the DWP, you then take the Board of Public Works, you take the department that is planning and land use, you take the department that is housing, rec and parks, everything from animal services to the zoo and the entire alphabet in between. And I represent over 300 boards, commissions, and departments. I also have what I sometimes call the privilege and what I sometimes call the burden of representing 17 other elected officials. And you haven't lived until you've gotten that. I prosecute misdemeanors in the city of Los Angeles committed by adults. So you asked me a lot of questions on criminal law. Here's the bottom line. If the alleged offender is a minor, I don't get that. That goes to George Gascon as the DA. If the crime is a felony or a wobbler, I don't get it right away. It goes to the DA. The only time I prosecute those is when the DA declines to prosecute as a felony, and then it might come to me as a misdemeanor. But my criminal jurisdiction is limited to misdemeanors committed by adults within the city limits. That's DV, DUI, DUID, trespass, petty theft, a whole host of questions. We also enforce city ordinances like building codes and on referrals from investigatory agencies, which can go from LAPD and LAFD, which are the obvious ones, to building and safety and planning and housing. And ACE, which Stacy is really leading the charge on, along with Streffen Faubel and some other folks in my office, is an administrative compliance enforcement program to try to let us bring people into compliance in a civil way more quickly. That is my introduction. I will do my best to answer the questions that I can, but I will refer back to my obligations as a lawyer where I can't. And I hope that you all understand that. You should ask your city council member. That's someone who can talk to you about the substance. I will also try to talk about the process where I can, because I don't know that that's subject to privilege, so that you get some visibility into city government. The only thing I will say about the work I've done so far is that my first year was looking inward. I really looked at the office itself, trying to manage it, trying to reorganize it, trying to figure out how City Hall worked. I tried to cue to my campaign promises. I took them seriously, and my campaign promises fell into 4 buckets: shutting down avenues of corruption, fostering public safety, helping with homelessness and doing everything I could to support the mayor and council's efforts in that regard, and transparency and accountability. I have made progress in each of those 4 areas. Nobody asked about them, so I won't bend your ears on them unless you specifically want me to address it, but I have made that a focus of my first year. My second year is about looking outward. My second year is about legislation in Sacramento, and I took 9 bills up. 5 got introduced. I'm down to 3. I'd love support on those 3 if people are interested in them. One is an antitrust bill to add residential housing to the State Cartwright Act, which would enable us to use my public rights branch and subpoena power to investigate large developers and large landlords, including those who buy and rent single-family homes within certain market concentrations. Besides the antitrust bill, I have 2 penal code bills that are aimed at the human trafficking and the prostitution of minors. What we have been doing along the Figueroa Corridor has uncovered that within a stone's throw of City Hall, just a few miles south, there is a very well organized trafficking ring for primarily Black and brown girls. And the facts are really astounding. And we've been focused on trying to improve that community. We do not arrest sex workers at all, adult or kids. We don't even arrest the bottoms. We are trying to disrupt the Johns. We're trying to bring into compliance the motels that are really crime magnets. And we're trying to get at the apex predators who run more than one. I mean, they run a series of girls as part of what's called the Kiddie Stroll on South Fig. And I could probably talk about that for hours, but I will shut up and take questions so that Lisa doesn't need to be the enforcer.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I am getting anxious. All right.
I can tell because you put your hand on your face like this.
Oh,
when
that's so funny. I listen to a lot of true crime stuff and they always talk about a tell. So I guess that's one of my tells, but also to be frank, I'm fielding a lot of chats, people trying to enter who can't and stuff like that. Okay, so I am going to hand it over to Mindy, who has our first question. So the floor is yours, Mindy.
Okay, thank you. And thank you so much for being here this evening. So I'm Mindy Rothstein-Mann, and I am with the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council, also with the Benedict Canyon Association. And I'm going to be asking a question about the wildlife ordinance, and I happen to live in the pilot area and would be directly affected by the passage of the ordinance, just to kind of be upfront about it. So my question is, and comment is that the NCSA took a position in support of a strong wildlife ordinance. And our understanding is that the implementation of a somewhat weaker version is on hold, waiting for the final ordinance to be delivered by your office. And the request was made in July of 2023. We have heard different reasons for the delay in the release of the wildlife ordinance and are hoping that you can enlighten us and tell us what the current update might be on the release of the ordinance.
I am so glad you didn't ask me to tell you what's happening behind the scenes, because I would have started with, I can't possibly do that.
I was listening. I heard what you said.
Okay, so I will speak generally. Okay, in general, when council as a whole refers an ordinance to us, that referral often starts a lengthy process. For an ordinance that's relatively simple, a change in fees or a tweak here and there, we usually get it back to them quickly, okay, in a matter of weeks, not months or years. When it is something that is very comprehensive, whether it's something like the Downtown Community Plan or the Hollywood Community Plan or the South LA Community Plan, all of which are also in my office, okay, as is the LA Sports and Entertainment Complex, or something like the wildlife ordinance, which once again, it implicates a whole series and overlays a lot of other specific plans and hillside ordinance and areas. I agree with you. It's a pilot project. It's the 405 to, I think it's the 101, maybe the 110. I don't remember, but it's that stretch of the Santa Monica Mountains. There's a lot to look at and to make sure that we understand it. The drafting and review of the ordinance for form and legality, which is what we call it, okay? It's for form and legality, touches on many areas of the law. So we do everything from ensuring that the ordinance, from a due process, equal protection kind of constitutional perspective, in our opinion, okay, I'm not telling you that people aren't going to disagree with us, but we try to put out ordinances that we believe are constitutional. We also take a look at all federal, state law and county ordinances and other municipal code ordinances to make sure that we understand what the potential conflicts or unintended consequences may be. And we try our best to identify and remove inconsistencies or gaps in the instructions that we may have received from council. And to the extent possible, we try to resolve those in the drafting of the ordinance without the need to go back. If we need to go back to council, that typically requires an open hearing. Okay, if it's really deliberations, if you will. Sometimes we can do a confidential report on risks that we might identify and ask council to consider those risks. I am not going to speak specifically of the wildlife ordinance, but I will tell you that every single zoning ordinance that is in the city today has to be looked at through the lens of state law as enacted over the last couple of years, our housing element and RENA. And just so you understand, it's not even a question of the wildlife ordinance. If you're talking about a specific project, if a project was included in the housing element that we submitted to the state as certified by the housing department at the state level, the inability to complete that project can have an unintended consequence of having the housing department start to rethink their certification of our housing element. It would be a disaster across our city if we did anything that caused the decertification of the housing element, because that simply gives rise to builder's remedy across the entire city. And so we move very, very carefully with zoning changes. There may be circumstances under which we can seek a confidential opinion from the state attorney general or from the state housing department if we're really not sure. We have not done that in any instance so far, but we are proceeding with a level of care that would not have been true 4 years ago. And I do apologize for that. There's a lot of competing considerations, and they're not about the desirability or lack thereof of the wildlife ordinance per se. They are about the interests of the city as a whole.
If I may, very quickly, because I know we have a lot of issues and I don't want to keep us from moving forward. So I hear what you're saying, and I am not an attorney, although I live with one.
Keep us sympathy,
so,
our pain in the butt to live with.
And so I know that we are living in different times, but you know, we all, I know that we deal with perceptions in life. And I can tell you that our community, you know, Benedict Canyon Association and our greater community, I can tell you, we supported the wildlife ordinance. Our board, the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council, supported it. We may wanted some changes, but we still supported it, as did the NCSA. And I can tell you the frustration is, from our point of view, that 7 years waiting for the wildlife ordinance, more than 8 months sitting in your office now. And it feels to us like it's been almost intentionally sitting there. And I have now heard your explanation and understanding that things are, you know, technical. And the feeling is that perhaps you don't understand that the community does support it. And so I think that more than anything, what everybody wants is to make sure that you understand that the community does support it and does want to see it go to council, and does want assurances that it's a priority for in your office to try to get this, you know, finally out of your office and to city council.
Mindy, let me just tell you a couple of personal facts that some folks on this call know. I've lived in LA since 1982. From 1993 to 2016, I lived in Mandeville Canyon, first in Upper Mandeville and then in Lower Mandeville. I was incredibly active in a lot of the development oars along the Santa Monica Conservancy and the canyons. On a personal level, I strongly support the protection of our wildlife and keeping our Cordillera Central is what I call it, our central mountain range, as a habitat and as a resource for us all as part of the lungs of our city. So you're not going to get any pushback from me. It really is technical. And I'm doing the best I can.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. So, okay.
All right, thank you. That was, thank you. Truly, deeply, thank you very much. Next, we are going to AJ.
Yes, hi, and thank you again for my name is um AJ. First and last name is Alvin Waters, Vice President of Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council, and also Chair of the LANCSA Energy Committee. So my question is going to be speaking specifically to Council File 220 220151. So this is the one in relation to the push for building decarbonization. So in recognizing our support to this, I guess our understanding was that LA Building and Safety was basically awaiting a decision on the Berkeley case. So just to bring some brief background, so this was the case that was at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
I'm very familiar with it.
Well,
Okay,
just for,
okay.
but not everybody in the room, in the Zoom room is
Oh,
probably
okay.
familiar. So go
Okay.
ahead, AJ.
Well, just to give a quick overview, so Berkeley was one of the first cities to basically push for a ordinance for new buildings, which include the restaurants to basically get off natural gas. So it was taken up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and actually recently it was put to a halt because of the California Restaurant Association's opposition. So now coming back down to our question, I guess we're just curious on, now that our side lost, we're just kind of wondering where things stand. Because our understanding was we were looking to see what the city, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, we were even seeing where the direction of building and safety was going to go with this. Because there's already other cities throughout LA County that have adopted this. Actually, a city that I know of that's adopted this and moved forward with Santa Monica. So just
Santa Monica, the other one I'm aware of, right? But they're not enforcing it right now, to the best of my knowledge, at least last time I talked to the city attorney. Let me back up. Let me try, because the procedural history of this is complicated and folks kind of need to understand how it interrelates. So Berkeley had an ordinance that said, thou shalt not put gas piping in new buildings. That's all it was. It applied to new construction, and it just said you can't use gas piping. The trial court said that that was fine, okay? And the Restaurant Association appealed that ruling. That ruling was fully briefed and submitted on May 12th, 2022. Our city, on May 31st, 2022, before I took office, after the matter was fully briefed, but before there was a decision at the Ninth Circuit, finalized its request back for an ordinance along the lines of the Berkeley one. That was the instruction from council, okay? Do what Berkeley did. That ordinance was passed. It's ordinance number 187714, okay? My office drafted it a little bit differently just to try to project what, and it was before my time, so I can't take credit for what I think was a good idea. But we drafted it in a way where what it said, rather than thou shalt not use gas, which really creates an equal protection issue, just said that all new construction has to be all electric with enumerated exceptions, okay? Which is a slightly different twist. It may be a distinction without a difference, but it is a twist. And that ordinance was signed by Mayor Garcetti on his last day in office on December 10th, 2022, his second to the last day in office. On April 7th, so the ordinance was in effect because it took effect under the Garcetti administration in January of 2023. And it was effective from, I think, my first 3 months in office. And on April 17th, the Ninth Circuit issued its ruling, basically saying, oh, no, the ordinance doesn't work, okay? And these kinds of municipal requirements on energy are preempted. Okay, this is a much even stronger argument, completely preempted by EPCA, the Energy Policy and Conservation Act. So it's preempted by federal law. That ruling, that it's completely preempted by EPCA, invalidated our ordinance as well. Now, that's not where we are today. That's what happened in April. Because that ruling was broad enough that our ordinance couldn't possibly survive. So the city of Berkeley then requested a hearing on bonk, which basically means that the ruling in April was 3 judges of the Ninth Circuit, because that's normal. And when you don't like what 3 judges do, you ask the court as a whole to hear it. And the court accepted it. And the Ninth Circuit reconsidered the ruling. Now, they didn't overturn it, but it's weird what happened. I have never seen this happen. And I've been practicing law now for, I don't know, 42 years. I've never seen this. They did not overturn it. They did not set a hearing. They did not set a briefing schedule. The 3 judges that issued the April opinion issued a new modified opinion. And the new modified opinion basically says, rather than the broad preemption, they just say you can't prohibit the gas piping under EPCA. So there's an argument that some of our ordinance might survive. Our ordinance, because it was drafted before the decision, isn't necessarily as strong in some respects as one might like. We are taking a look at it, and we will probably provide a confidential report to council. Don't exactly want to lay out a litigation roadmap for the universe. Thank you very much. But we're trying to see what we can do. If the Ninth Circuit opinion holds and our ordinance is invalidated, okay, our options are limited, because that's the question that I got. What can we do, right? If our ordinance is no good. The first thing we can do is, I'm racking my brain to be creative, okay? Because an outright prohibition is not incentivizing. So just like TOC incentivizes affordable housing, it's possible that an ordinance that simply incentivizes clean, green energy would pass muster and not be preempted and be permitted under the Ninth Circuit ruling, and be permitted more than this wordsmithing of no gas piping versus all electric, okay? Because I'm a little leery of saying that's a really substantive difference. But if what you did is you did surcharges, or you did, and one of the things we were looking at was impact fees, okay? Unfortunately, for those of you who may not be aware, our charming United States Supreme Court on Friday at 8 a.m. issued an opinion that I haven't yet read, that I need to digest, but that my lawyers tell me just invalidated our impact fees across the city. So what we had been working on for the decarbonization was the incentivization through impact fees. And I'm not sure that I can get that done given the recent Supreme Court opinion. And so I'll need to deal with that. Other than what we can do, I note for the record that the Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, graduated from Berkeley. And one could apply to the Department of Energy. Governor Newsom would have to do it. It would have to be statewide. But one could apply to the Department of Energy for an exemption for this kind of green decarbonization, and a finding that it's not preempted with respect to requiring cleaner, greener energy. Personally, that's what I would like. I would like a regulatory rulemaking. I think we have a friendly Department of Energy right now, if we can get it done before November. And I just don't know that we can or we can't. I don't know that the governor's office is particularly focused on this. And other than incentives and changing federal law, I'm not sure I have any good ideas, at least till I've read the Supreme Court opinion on Friday. But I share your objective, and it's somewhere where I am putting some attention and some focus.
Okay. I appreciate all of the insight. It was very informative.
I try to be where I can.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ji Young.
Hello, Ji Young Park. I am a liaison to the Silver Lake Neighborhood. Well, on behalf of the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, I'm a liaison to the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance. So on September 16th, 2023, the NCSA filed a Brown Act violation complaint against the City Council regarding the vote on the nomination of Jamie York to the Ethics Commission. As you probably know, we didn't receive a response within 30 days, so the inaction was deemed a decision not to cure or correct the challenged action. So the complaint states in part, it was clear to anyone watching the meeting that the only way a unanimous rejection of the nomination could have occurred so swiftly and without floor discussion would have been if it was discussed among the council in private, either through a de facto closed meeting, serial meetings, or both, likely by a majority of the council, which constitutes a violation of the Brown Act. You may know from your time as a neighborhood council member that neighborhood councils have been required to redo votes because of violations of the Brown Act, and it seems that neighborhood councils are being held to a higher standard than the city council. So without asking you to speak on details of an issue which may be considered pending, I wanted to, or on behalf of the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance, we wanted to mention our disappointment in the violation. The question is, in the spirit of your goal addressing council corruption on the city council, how can the public be assured that going forward, Brown Act violations will not continue to occur in city council?
Your question presupposes a fact that I do not accept, which is that you say there's no other way and a Brown Act violation had to have occurred, and I reject that entirely.
I just want to make clear that it's not, I'm speaking on behalf of the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance.
And I understand that. And
Okay.
I mean, but the question is framed in a way that presupposes the answer. And as many of us who've been involved in disputes or litigation over the years have found out, things are not always what they appear. And so I reject the premise of the question. As I said yesterday in the morning, I don't answer questions like, when did you stop beating your wife? Because yeah, hello, I never did, so we're not going there. Council satisfied its Brown Act requirement to take public comment on the matter. Council is never required to debate a matter, and it may simply vote on a matter after public comment, which is what happened here. Beyond that, I really can't comment, but you shouldn't take my inability to comment as an indication that I agree with the allegations underlying the question. It's
Okay, so let's remove the part that presupposes that it occurred. So how can the public be assured that going forward, Brown Act violations will not occur in city council?
Look, I don't control electeds, but let's be clear on what the Brown Act requires or does not require. It limits quorums. It limits the ability of council members to get together and engage in decision-making or communications regarding a matter that is pending in a way that would affect the vote. It doesn't stop one council member from talking to another council member. It just doesn't. I mean, that's not how it works. The reason so few council members appear at the same event or don't all travel together at the same time is because they are very cognizant of their obligations under the Brown Act. So if you have a 3-member committee, you can't have 2 of the members in the same room talking about things. Now, even if they're not talking about things, from an appearance of impropriety, we have policies and procedures in place at council that minimize the likelihood that it will seem as if there's decision-making, communications, backroom deals going on. They really don't meet in anything approaching a quorum for any one of their committees or for council as a whole. But I must tell you that, I mean, council members also talk to each other in ways that do not violate the Brown Act. And I don't think government could function otherwise. I mean, I talk to my clients all the time. And so the assumption that the only words that are ever said are said in an open meeting, I think is incorrect and is not required by law. And the manner in which the trick is, they're not supposed to be discussing matters on the agenda or matters that may come before them or reaching a decision as a body or in a quorum.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on. So we are going to Lionel. Lionel, are you there? Okay, I don't know where Lionel is, so I'm going to go
I'm here.
Okay, okay, go ahead,
Sorry.
Lionel.
I didn't realize you unmuted me. Hi, I'm City Attorney Soto. Thank you for coming. My question to you
Lionel,
is,
you need to introduce yourself first.
oh, sorry. Lionel Mars from the Sun Valley Area Neighborhood Council. And my question to you is, our understanding of the SB 411 is that 2/3 of a neighborhood council vote to meet via Zoom. They should be able to, and based on the text of the bill, we don't understand what is apparently the city's interpretation. Can you please help?
Yes, I can, first of all, when I don't just, when I look at the bill, and I don't give legal opinions to members of the public, I give legal opinions to my clients, the municipal corporation, and to the neighborhood councils as a whole. You need to understand that there is a body of case law that interprets what it means to have a supermajority of a legislative body. So for example, for city council to override the mayor's veto, it's 2/3 of the total seats. It's not 2/3 of those present. Whether there's 15 of them present, or there's 12 of them, or there's a vacant seat, you still need 10 affirmative votes. So for better or worse, the state law was passed in an environment where my office has for decades interpreted what it means to require a 2/3 vote of a legislative body. And our interpretation on this front is consistent with that. I do note that of the 99 certified neighborhood councils, I believe 88 have already passed by enough votes to do virtual meetings. I believe that most of the neighborhood councils who haven't had enough folks present to go to virtual because of vacancies have the power to appoint to fill those vacancies. There's very little I can do about the legal interpretation, because the ramifications of changing that for a neighborhood council, which might seem like a simple act, has a whole series of effects on many more substantive issues than just holding a virtual meeting.
Okay, I think I am satisfied with that answer, so we're going to move on. Thank you very much. Cindy.
Hi, Thank you for your time. I'm Cindy Hubach. I'm the co-chair of the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council Green Committee. And my question is about gas leaf blowers, a blight on our our communities for many years. As I'm sure you know, they've been illegal for about 25 years, but there really hasn't been the will to enforce the ordinance against gardeners. But Councilmember Raman recently introduced a motion, Council File 24-0055, which would move the enforcement from landscapers, gardeners, operators to homeowners. And we were wondering about your thoughts on enforcing that sort of ordinance.
Let me back up. I wasn't aware of Councilmember Raman's motion till this question was asked of me.
Okay, great.
My office reacts when council asks us to do something, okay? When I first took office, as a matter of fact, what I did was I went council member to council member, and I gave them each what I called a golden ticket, okay? And the golden ticket was, you get one request of my office for drafting of an ordinance, for a legal opinion or something, without having to take it to council. So every council member got a single golden ticket and could call on my office to do work. But we would lose our minds, okay, if any one council member or any committee could just ask us to do something. We'd never stop running around doing exploratory work. How's that? So we wait till council as a whole has acted. What I can talk about is the fact that the gas-powered leaf blowers, understand the maximum citation is $100. Understand that it's very hard to enforce. You have to catch somebody in the act. I'm going to say something that may not be popular in this crowd, but I also need to spread the word. We are very short-staffed at LAPD. Part of my goal on ACE compliance is to take a lot of the smaller misdemeanors off the table so that we don't have as much of a strain on resources on our police department, and that we as an office can start to do some of that investigation. But at $100 an ordinance, building and safety isn't interested, housing isn't interested. It's just not considered sufficiently serious. And the blowing happens, and I shouldn't say that it's not a serious disturbance to our quality of life. It is that the cost of enforcement and the limited resources available to us are more than the citation. Okay, it costs us more to enforce than what we can collect. And so an ordinance that would shift that to a property owner, maybe. What do you do if the property owner's not home? What do you do if it's a rental property and it's a gardener who works for the tenant and not for the landlord? I can see a lot of, and I'm just spitballing with you, okay? Because I don't know what the council member wants, and I don't know that it'll pass city council. But I view it as an important set of issues to resolve in a way that makes enforcement at scale a little more effective. If I get some of the changes that we're asking for in ACE, okay, and we will be asking council for changes, you as a neighbor can take a short video, submit it to my ACE program under an affidavit, okay, where you do a declaration under penalty of perjury, and we could use that as evidence. Okay. Right now, we're not allowed to do that. Right now, we need a city employee to do inspections. So I'm trying to set up almost like a direct access for community, for neighbors to, I mean, it would work for party houses. It would work for leaf blowers. It would work for a whole host of areas where our residents and our businesses and our neighborhoods could lean in and help us help you by getting us the information that we need to issue a citation and get to court. And that's the best idea I have so far. Because, I mean, today with my office, we have over 55,000 criminal referrals, and we have tens of thousands of civil litigation. not to mention the ordinances and the work and the advisory work. And I only have 550 lawyers. So creating technology processes, the ability to use fewer city employees to gather the evidence and use the power of city government to enforce and to put a stop to the bad behavior is one of my objectives this year.
Yeah, that's great. The motion actually does call for an alternative form of enforcement away from LAPD, possibly through LA-SAN, just an investigation and how better to handle enforcement. So those sound like great ideas. Maybe we can go to the council office with some of that. So
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
will tell you, LaSan is as short-staffed or more short-staffed than we are.
Yeah.
And
No doubt.
swept
Okay.
vacancies. So LaSan is not a great place to find extra bodies to do this.
Okay.
Where from?
All right, thank you. That's super helpful. Next question, it goes to Terry.
Yes, hi. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm with the Tarzana Neighborhood Council. My question is, our understanding is that your office has a trees committee addressing illegal tree removal and tree enforcement policy. And I was hoping you could give us a little bit more information about that.
Yes, this stems from back, I think when I appeared before the Brentwood Community Council in June. I had formed a loose group of my lawyers to address the tree ordinances and protected trees versus street trees, and what we were doing in terms of sidewalk repair and what we were doing to deny permits. That committee it was an ad hoc committee. It is no more, okay, because they came up with a list of recommendations that we are implementing. So for example, on a parcel, I'm trying to remember the neighborhood, I can't, but it was a parcel where somebody was blatant and like took down 50 protected trees. What we did was we issued a moratorium on any building permits for, I think, 5 years.
Heidi, if I can preface, that was in the Mar Vista area, and that is coming back up for a hearing, but you did take action on that.
Yes, so we have a series of recommendations that are more effective than simply, you know, a rounding error of $1,500 a tree. We have been enforcing the replacement provisions, and yes, I understand that even at 2-to-1, if what you're talking about is a 24, you know, box tree versus a fully mature tree, it doesn't do the trick. I get that. But I'm dealing with a lot of competing departments and competing priorities at City Hall. To give you an example, we are parties to something called the Willits Settlement Agreement, which, by the way, you can find on my website. One of the things I did for transparency is I took all the settlement agreements to which the city is a party, where we have continuing obligations, and I posted them under resources on my website. So if you're looking for settlement agreements and what the city is bound by, they're there. Willits and Wiggins and Independent Living and all of them. I'm trying to do the same thing with unpublished ordinances. I haven't managed to catch up with myself to get that done. But specifically on the trees, I think that my office, because again, we're passive, we get referrals from other places, and street services and Bureau of Engineering are very focused on Willits, and we have truckers and various and sundry workforce development elements that are very focused on repaving roads, and there's lots of competing interests within the city. What I would recommend is that we have a citizen oversight committee. I assume everybody here knows that, for urban forestry, for the canopy. Yes, no, maybe. Okay.
You
There's
mean CPAC?
yes.
Oh yeah, we know about them.
There's a bunch of vacancies. Do you know that?
A
There's
lot of the people on CFAC are in the room.
But why are there 4 or 5 vacancies?
Joanne, can you take that?
Can answer that. There are 5 vacancies sitting at the mayor's office waiting to be appointed, and one alternate.
Yeah, the mayor only appointment.
I'm sorry.
Mayor-
They've been nominated by the council offices, 5 people. One
Okay.
has been at the mayor's office since last August, and it's just stuck there. And I just,
I can help with that.
That'd be great.
okay,
That I can help with. Unsticking city bureaucracy, that is something I can't make anybody do anything, but I can help unstick. Because sometimes things just get lost in the shuffle.
it's
I-
Michelle Barton at the mayor's office who's holding them.
Who is?
Michelle Barton. And
Stacy,
I've asked Rachel to intervene. Rachel
Rachel-
Mallory. Rachel has intervened to the extent that she can.
Rachel Freeman, you mean, from the mayor's
Rachel
office?
Mallory. the
Mallory.
city-
I don't know who Rachel Mallory is.
She's the city forest officer.
Ah, okay. Stace?
I think the point is that CFAC actually really has very little power. So to tell anybody who has a tree concern to go to CFAC, we just don't have any power, and urban forestry doesn't respect us. I mean, we have all this time been really hoping and praying that the city attorney would help us get enforcement of illegal tree removals that are just happening left and right. Sorry to just jump in, but I just wanted to clarify that, being a member of CFAC who's been there for 5 years, and I see how little power we actually really have in the city.
Hi, Isabel. Good to see you. If I can jump in, I want to clarify Michelle Barton in the mayor's office is the person who has the nominations.
Right.
Thank you.
And I'm the chair of CFAC and Isabel is the vice chair. So
Joanne.
here.
Commitment. Put time on my calendar for CFAC. I'm happy to meet with CFAC with the lawyer from my municipal branch who's assigned to CFAC and to urban forestry. And we'll start to suss this through. Because my problem is I need a referral from an agency today. I'm working on getting the power that I need to do it myself. But, you know, in the one case where we had an extreme circumstance in Mar Vista, we persuaded planning to deny the permit. If we can roll out that recommendation across the city, people will be a lot more careful about removing protected trees on private property. Now, we still have the issue of street trees. And that's a separate conversation because that's a whole separate set of issues. And I don't want to derail this meeting on trees, but I'm happy to take a meeting with CFAC. And Stace, if you'd put that on, and I think it would be someone under Ted Jordan who should be at that meeting with us. Okay?
Thank you.
Care a lot about trees.
Ms. Soto, can I speak on?
No,
the
I'm
blow-
sorry, Richard. We have people who have been waiting very patiently and we have 2 minutes. So I'm actually going, Joanne, this is going to bother you, but because you have now an audience with the city attorney, I'm actually going to jump to Gabriel about the gondola. Gabriel, I think you're here, aren't you?
Gabriel, careful what you ask me.
Oh, there you are, yes.
Thank you again for meeting with us. I'm a community organizer with the Wall Los Memorias, and we are part of the steering committee with the Stop the Gondola Coalition. So the question was regarding the LA Art Gondola project and Councilmember Hernandez's amended motion, which was adopted by City Council in March. What actions have been stopped in the city related to the project, and what actions are still allowed to proceed at the city level? Can you provide any insight as to why the motion had to be amended, and how did this come about? We heard that the direction may have came from the office, your guys' office.
I'm not going to comment on my advice to my client. I can't do that. I mean, just to give you an example, I've been pilloried in the press on something that I never said. And one of my clients called me up and said, but you never said that. You never said that. That's not who you are. Do you want me to call the LA Times and set them straight? And I'm like, no. And my client said, well, why not? I said, because all you're doing is prolonging the news cycle. Okay. They're wrong. It's misinformation. And I can't go there and I can't defend myself. And if you go try to defend me, the only thing that's going to happen is they're going to call whatever council member leaked this nonsense to them. And they're going to say, well, this is what council member X says. What do you say? And the headline becomes, city council at war over city attorney. So I don't comment on the legal advice that I do or don't give my clients. I can tell you that I never tell them what they can and cannot do. If anything is legal and moral and consistent with other applicable law, it is my job to give them alternatives on how to get done what they want to get done with the pros and the cons. And the most I will do is make a recommendation. I may say, I think you should do it this way because, but I'll do it any way you want. Okay, and that's my job. My job is not to decide that they should stop this or start that or turn left or turn right. Those are policy issues that are outside my ken. When it comes to the gondola, my only understanding is what was set forth in my only understanding that I can talk about is what was set forth in the motion that was before council, which is that the motion requires an updated traffic study to be completed and considered by council before council takes any further action on the project. The applicant may need to pursue approvals from a bunch of different city departments, and those applications may independently require council approval. Legislative approvals with respect to a specific plan, with respect to a sign district, with respect to the entry by the city into a development agreement or a franchise agreement. All of that stuff requires separate city council approval. Now, usually for a project, it's all packaged in one, and there's a staff report from planning, and it may require CPC approval, and it comes to council in that manner. But even if the developer pursues the various applications that are required, there are some kinds of approvals that can only be initiated by the city. A developer, for example, cannot initiate an amendment to the general plan. A developer typically cannot initiate the imposition of a specific plan. And so without city initiation, a particular zoning entitlement may not be able to proceed. And that's pretty fact specific. And I typically will advise the client on each of those independently. And I'm not going to repeat what advice I may or may not have given in a given matter in a public setting. But
Ms. Soto, City Attorney.
Richard, I'm sorry, but we have questions that other people are waiting to have asked that were predetermined.
I'm sorry, I was here, the third person on the screen. I'm sorry, I didn't know I had to do anything special to speak.
No, yeah, there are people who've been on the list to ask questions.
I was one of the third persons on the screen. I didn't know there was something special to do to speak.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, there was since January, actually, probably maybe December. I apologize. Jamie, go ahead. Jamie, are you here?
I am. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Hi, Jamie York, President of the Reseda Neighborhood Council. As you were previously part of the Pico Neighborhood Council, I was surprised, I think many others were surprised, when guidance was issued from your office via Dunn on neighborhood councils' ability to weigh in specifically to the city council and your office regarding our opinions on lawsuits, whether we're for them, against them, whether we would like you to initiate one. The section that was cited was Charter Section 271, and we were told that we were not allowed to advise or raise concerns with lawsuits, but that seems to fly directly in the face of Charter Section 910, which gives neighborhood councils the direct ability to weigh in on the monitoring of city services and let our representatives know what we think of their performance, if we think that it's good performance, bad performance, what have you. So I am curious if you can let us know if your office still continues to go by that advice, because I have seen it indicated elsewhere that that was drawn back. And to be specific, I'm not talking about trying to like submit an amicus brief on a lawsuit. I'm saying simply to tell our elected officials as a neighborhood council what we think of any particular opinion on a lawsuit. Thank you.
That's a multi-part question, but I'll do my best to address it. Everybody has the right of free speech. I am probably one of the more accessible elected officials. I'm happy to meet with anybody and have anybody talk to me about your views on me, my office, my priorities, whether or not I can sort with goats or anything else that may exist. I am not going to be discussing litigation strategy, litigation risks, issues that are within the attorney-client or work product privilege with any neighborhood council. As for Charter Section 910, as I suspect you know, it specifically says that NC shall monitor the delivery of city services, quote, in their respective areas, close quote. That to me is relatively clear. And it says that you may have periodic meetings with responsible officials of city departments. I submit to you that, and I'm not issuing a legal opinion here, and I honestly don't get involved in this level of advice across the city. Most of the time, I don't have the ability or the bandwidth to drop down. But to me, the delivery of city services in the area covered by the neighborhood council means precisely that. What city services like utilities, sanitation, trash pickup, street services, nuisance abatement, first responders, what needs attention in your neighborhood and your communication. And the means of communication is a meeting with the responsible department, not a community impact statement. Community impact statement is a statement that is an advisory statement to council with respect to matters that are on the agenda, the subject of motions are being considered by council. And so nothing, for example, authorizes an NC to agendize anything on city council's agenda or to act, for city council or for the city on a given matter. With respect to privilege issues, those typically are limited to those quote unquote in control. It's like the city's a municipal corporation, just like any other corporation. And the attorney-client privilege of a private corporation is typically limited to the board and the executive officers. It doesn't drop down to every employee. And so my office is very careful. We don't engage in litigation where we are representing the city as a whole with various, with the public, including neighborhood councils. I know that's not the popular answer in this room. And I do apologize for that. But I have to do my job as city attorney. And with 99 certified neighborhood councils and 2 more, seeking certification, there's just no way that we could function with a lot of CISs from folks who really aren't within the privilege and who we can't talk to about the alternatives and how it works.
Okay, thank you. There are 2 more questions I'm hoping you can answer. Joanne, I know you had a question, but I think I'm going to hope that you can, it's okay if since you're going to get in a separate audience with the city attorney, that we can refrain from asking her as if she has to leave early.
I don't think she's going to answer it anyway.
Well, that's probably true. Fair enough. But sometimes it's just satisfying to ask the question, right?
I object to the word early. I'm 9 minutes over my end time already, but that's okay, Lisa. Just
Well, yes, sorry. You know what, I've been led to believe that you were leaving, since you were staying until 8, just so you know, had been my understanding. Okay, so I'm moving as fast as I can. Danny, I think you're here, and I really want you to be able to ask your question. Danny?
Hi, I'm here. I'm Danny Luna. I'm part of the Echo Park Neighborhood Council. I'm also on a few other boards that represent the area of Temple Beaudry also. So my question is, and our concern that we have right here, we're right on top of the Los Angeles oil field. I don't know how familiar you are with it. So my concern and is for both the fact that development has been encouraged and has been is on the rise, and as it's happening, a lot of the safety guidelines have actually been pushed off to the side and have been blatantly ignored or totally dismissed. So for us, the biggest concern that we have and the point of view that I want to know from you is what is the city's concern on its liability for actually waiving a lot of these safety measures?
Let me ask it a different way, because I'm not going to comment on what I think the city's liability or exposure is, but I do want to answer your question. Okay. So it's not phrased in a way where I can answer it. I'm not familiar with Tempo Beaudry per se. Okay. I am incredibly familiar with the issue of uncapped and abandoned wells all over our city. I also did read the video that you guys included in the questions that you sent me. So I watched it. I will say that the video predates our oil ordinance, and the video, a lot of that footage was not the city of LA, maybe LA County. Okay. But a lot of it was the Playa Vista or Playa Vista, Santa Monica Marina fields. Okay. Which a lot of that is outside my jurisdiction. The oil well and uncapped and abandoned well issue permeates Los Angeles County, is not unique to our city. So what our law provides is that no developer in the city of LA can receive a building permit from Building and Safety unless and until every single oil well on the property is properly abandoned to current standards. Okay, so they can't be building on top of uncapped wells, as far as I know. And Building and Safety is not supposed to be issuing a permit until it gets a clearance, a certification from the responsible agency. Now, where I think there's been some breakdown is that the responsible agency for the city of Los Angeles, as designated by the state, the county, and the city, is CalGEM. Okay, so it's the state California Geological Energy Management Division. It's not a division of the city. So when a developer applies to build anywhere in the city, but yes, relevant in Echo Park, okay, and across the city, LADBS refers the developer to CalGEM, and the developer works with CalGEM, Building and Safety. Usually the fire department gets involved, and you wind up with experts and consultants, and occasionally the city planning department has to get involved to identify and locate any wells on the property and make sure that they are capped and abandoned to current standards. CalGEM and the fire department are then responsible for making sure that it's been done to current standards, and they are supposed to sign off with Building and Safety, which has got to be done before construction is completed or before a certificate of occupancy is issued. Now, it may be that a tweak to that process to require that the certification occur before we break ground, okay? Because the way it's framed right now, and again, I didn't know this till I started preparing for the question, because it's a nuance that isn't obvious unless you're steeped in this. But right now, the certification has to occur before you complete construction and before the CO gets issued. There might be a greater incentive to prioritize the capping of the well if, in order to get a grading permit or a demolition permit or whatever permit you need, to a project plan review, a site review, if you did it at the beginning, that might be a little bit better. The process for capping wells applies to all buildings under construction, including emergency declaration housing. It is one of the few processes that survives the executive directives. I'm just surprised to hear from you that
there's apparently construction. I'm really sorry. Lucy, come here, baby. Come here, sweetheart. I'm surprised to hear from you that that's not happening, because the way it's constructed, there's enough agencies involved. There's enough eyes on it. There's enough dual certifications required that I wouldn't view it as an avenue to corruption. There's too many cooks in the kitchen, okay? And the city is very committed to the complete phase out of all oil and gas development in the city. And to capping off these old wells and making sure that buildings are safe. We have a set of methane mitigation standards. You know, we've got a whole lot of different things going on. And the development of property in, I think that Temple Beaudry is in the Echo Park area. Is that right, Danny?
Correct.
Yeah, the development of properties in Echo Park typically doesn't involve new federal funding. So the cost of abandoning those wells has to be borne by the developer who's building on the property. And I mean, I'll take addresses.
I
look
would
at.
love to speak with you, and I would actually like love to invite you to one of the tours that we do, because I've actually been steeped in this for years, and your jaw will drop. Trust me, it will drop, and you will be concerned after taking one of our tours. Actually, I've just to give you a little bit of a background. I've actually been myself and Rosalinda. We've actually been educating the city as to their faults. And a lot of the planning department and everybody else that's involved with this, they're actually shocked. And to me, it's crazy to think. And yes, some of these things have been adjusted and have been ignored and have been pushed aside. I mean, for example, when we had the mayor here, the secretary of the interior, our city council member, asking for the $200,000, $200 million fund, federal funds. That was us that was involved in that. And when they got it, and I pointed out to them the building that was down the street from the site that they were coming to visit, and I told them the oversights that happened even on that construction site. The mayor's response was, "Oh, it must have been," and this was a former mayor, by the way. He says, "Oh, it must have been because that's low income," and I'm like, "Okay, so low income people, don't deserve the same, living standards." So it's very, very concerning how some of these things are happening.
The approach of this administration, okay, not the mayor's office, not my office, not city council. Okay, I think that underserved neighborhoods and folks who lack the financial means to protect themselves are a very front and center concern across our city. I would prefer not to reinvent the wheel and take on something that is more than I can absorb right now, because my bandwidth is limited. However, I do have lawyers in my office who deal with capping of oil wells. And if you have given tours, and I'm not talking about Mayor Garcetti himself, he's not here. But if there are folks in planning or folks at building and safety who are still with the city, who you've dealt with this issue on, whose jaws dropped, get Stacy Shore their names, okay? We will circle internally and see what we can do to assign somebody to deal with enforcement. And Stace, we should take a look at ACE and add this to the list of things we want to try to address.
Absolutely. Danny, when you write to me, and my email is in the chat earlier, could you please also provide contact information where I can reach you if I have any additional questions before I forward it to the attorneys in our office to take a look at? Thanks.
Yeah, can you retype your email just so I can find it?
I will, I can work with both of you. Anyway, I'm very excited. Thank you. And Phyllis, you can close us out as far as the city attorney goes.
Okay, thanks. I'm Phyllis Ling. I'm the chair of the Historic Cultural North Neighborhood Council, which represents Chinatown, El Pueblo, Solano Canyon, and Victor Heights. And my question is about conflict of interest and quote unquote bias conflict. Can you provide guidelines for neighborhood council board members that we can use regarding what qualifies as a conflict of interest due to the appearance of bias? it would be very helpful if board members could know or have examples so that we can, about what we can and can't do in the community in our personal capacity, while preserving our ability to fully participate in issues that come before our boards.
I'm trying to see how best to answer this. There are lawyers in my office who do nothing but advise on conflicts of interest and recusals. I consult the lawyers in my office with specifics, facts, and circumstances. You have state law overlay, the Fair Political Practices Act. You have the local municipal ordinances on lobbying. You have all kinds of provisions that come into play, and I don't even know what they all are. I mean, I got so tired of recusing myself on things, even though honestly, I'm pro-tenant on things like just cause and rent stabilization. And because I owned more than 3 rental units, I had to recuse every time it came around. So I sold the building at a loss. Okay, because I couldn't deal with it and I couldn't figure out when I needed to recuse. Here are the broad outlines, and then you need to take it narrower. If you want to be really involved in your community, especially if you want to serve on a PAC, okay, a 501c4, or you have a single issue, or especially if you're getting paid for that level of advocacy work, you should expect to recuse yourself in a neighborhood council. There's nothing you can do that would insulate you from that kind of financial conflict or that kind of bias. So look for every place that pays you money, okay, and look for what they are. If it's not a 501c3, okay, because 501c3s are exempt. If it's a charitable entity, have at it. That's not within the lobbyist registration requirements. That doesn't mean that you may not have a conflict of recusal on a specific item, especially if it affects the nonprofit directly. But just about any other activity that pays you money or that you're invested in is going to require a recusal. If you own more than $2,000 of stock in any entity, you can have nothing to do with it. So for example, and I don't manage my own stocks, okay? They're all in managed accounts with money managers. I don't know what they buy and sell, but I had over $2,000 of Apple stock. I couldn't weigh in on the Apple campus in South LA. I'm walled off. I may own 0.0000001% of the company, but it is deemed to be a financial interest under the laws that govern this. And it's actually a misdemeanor not to recuse. So I'm not going to give you a black and white set of checklists when the consequences of being wrong is that violation of a penal code. We do provide training. I can talk to, it's usually Elise Rudin and sometimes Renee Stottle, who's the ethics guru in my office, who will provide training to sort of give you guardrails to watch out for. But we've been asked to do checklists for commissioners across boards, and we've said no. We've been asked by council to give them a quick little checklist, and we've said no, because we can't possibly do it comprehensively enough. It involves not only you, it involves your spouse, it involves immediate family members, it involves entities in which you have a financial interest of $2,000 or more. And it is sufficiently fact specific that some of our council members don't always spot it until they sit down with our office to go through it in many multiple levels. I'm really sorry. I wish I had a better answer. I just don't. It's one of those areas of law that is fact intensive. And the best advice I can give you, if your passion, okay, across the board is electrified buildings, you probably shouldn't serve on the land use committee for your neighborhood council. Just probably shouldn't, because you're passing on developments that may or may not comply with your activities and your predetermined view of what is appropriate for new construction. Neighborhood council members are supposed to be a voice for the community. The community is entitled to an unbiased view, not your opinion, but to a conduit of a consensus-making board that takes into account the views of the community. And paid advocates are always going to have issues of recusal. We had one circumstance where, you know, if there's someone who's passionate about transportation, they probably shouldn't serve on the transportation committee of their neighborhood council, because they are taking actions and typically being paid for lobbying activities in the area. And that can trigger penal code sections. It's pretty serious. And I go to Renee when I have any issue. I don't make those decisions for myself, because they are very, very fact specific and the laws are so strict. And I think to myself, but I'm not biased. Why do I have to recuse? I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah, I think part of the issue is it seems subjective in a lot of ways, the appearance of bias.
If there's no financial interest, okay, it's a little bit easier. It's not the kind of thing that's going to trip the penal code.
Mm-hmm.
Not getting paid by a PAC, if you're not getting paid by a lobbying organization, if you're not monitoring city business on behalf of your employer, so you're not in governmental affairs, it's a little bit easier. And we can, I'm not the right person to sort of give you guideposts to watch out for, because my reaction is, as the city attorney, I can't possibly fall within even a gray area. Okay, I am so conservative in what I do and don't do, because think about it, as the city attorney, if I get hauled up on that kind of a charge, then where is my moral ground to draw the line for anybody else? I have lawyers in my office who specialize in that, and I will tell you that we have resisted the urging, okay, by any number of our clients to give them do's and don'ts, okay, that they can apply easily. Because it's not that easy. And a court's not going to view it that easily. And the Ethics Commission isn't going to view it that easily. And the Fair Political Practices Commission isn't going to view it that easily. They're going to get into the details. And what may be perfectly appropriate in one circumstance isn't appropriate in another. I mean, if we're not providing enough training at a neighborhood council level, maybe what we can do is the Congress of Neighborhood Councils is coming up in September. Stacy, why don't you talk to Dunn and see if they want a training session on these kinds of issues, ethics and recusal. And hopefully a little.
Because I know in our neighborhood council, we had at least 2 board members who have no financial tie to the project who were told to recuse themselves. So I guess it is I don't know if there's.
Phyllis, I'm curious, if they had no financial tie, why were they told to recuse? Was there a relative involved?
By the way, this is about the gondola. This is, just to be clear, this is the gondola we're talking about.
Idea. I mean, we give advice across the board. If they live within 500 feet of the project, they have to recuse. That's by municipal code ordinance. So I mean, I have oil wells within 500 feet of my house. Okay, I can't be involved in that site because I'm within 500 feet, and that's a black and white rule. If you live within 500 feet of the project, you are recused as a neighborhood council member. You retain your right as a constituent to take whatever position you want, but you can't participate in the neighborhood council decision-making. Stace, can you make a note to get that municipal code section and send it to Phyllis, please? Does that help, Phyllis? Because I suspect if it's the gondola, that's what it was, that they lived within 500 feet.
Oh, no. Well, definitely one person didn't, but I don't know.
Yeah. the advice that we give to individual neighborhood council members is typically given to the council member direct. Okay, I tell you that there's at least one neighborhood council member, again, who misstated our advice, because I was privy to the advice that we gave because it was in writing. And it wasn't in the gondola, and it wasn't in your neighborhood council. And once again, it's a privileged communication. So people can take pot shots at me all day long in the shade, and I can't defend myself. Because I value the privilege with each of you as well.
If you could please add
your lawyers' capacity as neighborhood council members, I take that seriously. If you're sued, we're going to defend you.
If you could please add your email address in the chat so I have it, I will certainly look this up and send it out to you.
Well, we got you until 8 o'clock.
What I live for. Can I now go give my mother her medication, please? Look, I'm accessible. If there are any questions I did not answer, getting them to me directly is not always the best approach because my inbox gets inundated. Getting them to Stacy is a good idea. Getting them to Danette Garcia in my office is a good idea. Danette.garcia@lacity.org. Getting them to my public facing email, which is Hydee.Feldstein Soto@lacity.org. Those will typically get answered. I have a team of 6 to 8 admins who monitor that email because it's too much traffic for me to do on my own. I have access to it. I will see it, but somebody else clears it and starts figuring out who is best suited in the office to answer it. It is not Hydee.Rose@lacity.org, whoever put that in the chat. I've actually had to get rid of that email because too many fly-by-nights have been using it and crowding the email. So please do not use that email. I block people from that email. It was for internal purposes only, and I've now changed it. My correct email is Hydee.Feldstein Soto@lacity.org. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I am, once again, I mean, I am amazed at how knowledgeable you are about so many things. I am so impressed by you.
I'm not sure it would have been as good a meeting if you hadn't sent the questions in advance because
Well, of course. Sure.
Prepare. Thank you. But I will answer anything that I possibly can. It's just sometimes I need to consult with the lawyers who are actually doing the work.
Of course, but I can tell, even though the questions were sent to you in advance, and Richard, sorry, but that's on the event page, we had the questions in advance, and that's how this was set up. But still, it's very, very apparent how knowledgeable you are. Even though I mean, I wrote the questions. I am pretty well versed on all these issues. I learned so much tonight. So thank you so much. This was really, 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 really educational. And thank you, Stacy, for helping facilitate this. And thank you so much to everybody who actually submitted a lot of the questions. I shouldn't have said I wrote the questions. I rewrote some of the questions, but this was very, very much a collaborative effort as this alliance is. So thank you so much to everybody who contributed the questions. And we're not done. We're going to have committee reports, but we are going to free the city attorney to attend to her mother, and we will wrap up in a few minutes. Oh, and thank you, Charles, for submitting the evaluation again.
Señor
Go
Serrano,
ahead.
quiere mandar una pregunta, se la contesto por email. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye all.
All right. So I will pull up our slides and start with our first committee report, which is advocacy, because it is the first in the alphabet. So we have a lot going on with advocacy. Charles or somebody, could you put a couple of the links to the stuff on the comprehensive plastics ordinance for me, please? I'm hoping that folks have heard about that. Let me pull that information up if I can. Bear with me. Okay. this is something that I'd done on my behalf, sent something out to those of you in the neighborhood council system, and we're not moving as quickly as I thought we were. Reusable LA, so LA San has something coming out. That several previous, well, Gregorian and I think O'Farrell and Koretz were working on this. They directed LA San to put this program out. And it's coming out now, what's called a program EIR is coming out. And there's a, there's a public comment period is closing on April 26th. So most neighborhood councils are not going to be able to weigh in on this. It was a very short public comment period. For some reason, that's the law. It's limited to 45 days. And we're not going to have a template letter out until I think the end of this week. So that does not work out very well. And it was like 1,500 page program EIR. So that's really not manageable. But there is a training that I'm hoping Charles is putting a link to in the chat Tuesday at 5 in case you're interested. Part of the training will be on this. And I think tomorrow we'll have a little way to submit comments with some information in case you're interested in doing that as an individual. ED1, we might be talking about that at our next meeting. We've had what we call a spicy conversation in our advocacy committee. Local hazard mitigation plan. Are you here, Melanie?
I am, yes.
You want to say like 30 seconds or 60 seconds on that? If you want.
The local hazard mitigation plan is it's in draft now. It's a 1,000-page document. There were some significant changes made between the previous draft when we got a little bit of an overview of it and this one. The comment period is very short. It ends in about 10 days, I believe.
No, I think it ends tomorrow.
Oh yes, it's sorry. God, I know what today is. It ends tomorrow. But it is a step forward for the city, but not a step far enough. It also coordinates with several other city documents that are on different schedules for updates, and there's been some confusion about which document to refer to in, for instance, ED1. So if in the development of ED1, they refer to the outdated floodplain management plan instead of the newer local hazard mitigation plan, you get very different results. So that's what I'll say about that.
So it's an unfortunate missed opportunity for us to engage. I'm disappointed. Anyway, this has not gone very well, but that's where we are. We're going to talk about the Rory Shaw. Sorry, I keep doing that, or my computer keeps doing that. Wetlands Park, which Lionel brought to us. I'm hoping we'll talk about. Oh, it's not me. It's my computer. Which Lionel brought to us. Charter reform, ethics reform. Charles, if you could. It's not me. It's my computer. Which we're part, or I'm active in the Fair Rep LA, as is Melanie and maybe a couple others on this call. Oh, Jamie, if she's still here, she's very active with some of that stuff. Actually, I think she's one of the reasons I got involved. Just in the last couple of days, Council President Gregorian submitted a very interesting letter that I have not finished reading with suggestions about ethics reform. I think he actually did that the very day that the LA Times wrote a kind of a grumpy, scathing editorial about why he wasn't doing anything on ethics reform. So Charles, if you could put, or whoever's helping me could put that link in the chat, that would be fun. We might talk about bioswales in our May meeting. I'm not sure what we're going to do. We've got a lot going on. We've also got fun conversations about artificial turf, since now we can do something at a city level. So lots of stuff going on in the advocacy committee, a little too much going on. Our next meeting is May 5th. You're welcome to join us. We don't always have fun, turns out, but we usually have fun. So please do join us. Okay, energy, AJ.
Yep, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, so the latest updates are that we've been continuing our ongoing efforts and advocacy with the Vista Hermosa community, which was why we had Danny here to speak with the city attorney. So one of the major updates that I do want to highlight was the draft motion that we were actually working on related to this, that our draft motion letter did get in front of CD1. We actually had a follow-up tour with CD1. I don't know if I covered that in the last meeting already, but
Yeah, no, you didn't, because we haven't had a meeting because we didn't have you didn't.
Right. Okay. So we actually had our follow-up tour with CD1 present. We actually had the council member Eunices Hernandez present. We even had people from planning present. So I mean, we were even able to give a tour and have a conversation. And I think our biggest takeaway was that CD1 definitely cared about the matter. In fact, I mean, we were basically getting pushed to move on this because we don't know what the future holds for CD1 holding office. The second item that I want to update on is we've been working in partnership with Lionel, who's also here on the meeting, regarding matters with the Valley Generating Station. So the latest update there was we had our conversation with CD6. It was a productive conversation. We did feel that there was a lot of gaps that we needed to fill in the conversation with CD6, as they're not fully up to speed on this, but they are aware that we have their attention and looking forward to further conversation with them. The latest is they're supposed to be doing a briefing with LADWP on it. So we definitely look forward to updates there. Second to last thing is one of our committee members was pushing for support from the nonprofit organization Grid Alternatives, which I work with. The focus around this project is to push resiliency, specifically promoting the use of microgrids. So at the 11th hour, we were fortunate to get Grid Alternatives to write a support letter around this campaign. And then the next thing that we have to look forward to is one of my colleagues from Grid Alternatives. We will be starting the conversation with her to potentially be giving just a high level overview of where Grid's program is. And just a reminder, our meetings are every third Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Great. Thank you very much, AJ. All right, Joanne.
No, that's transportation.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Muriel.
Hello. So we had our meeting on April 4th. We talked about the flyway buses in Van Nuys, like by the Van Nuys airport, ways to electrify them. And then we also discussed the city council vote for the motion that Eunices Hernandez made on the stop on the gondola, as well as the EV motion that's still ongoing. And then, yeah, we usually have our meetings the first Thursday of the month. So it's like my committee meeting is usually the first one of all the other ones. So yeah, just email me if you have any questions, and if you want to see if you want to be added to the listserv, or if you want to see the minutes from previous meetings.
All right, thank you very much. And now trees. And
Okay.
Joanne.
Okay, our next meeting is it's going to be Saturday, May 18th, because Memorial Day weekend is the following weekend. So I figure we'll have better attendance if we don't wait for the last Saturday. And so we meet on Saturday, 1:30 to 3:30 on Zoom. I want to clarify what was going on in that cryptic discussion with the city attorney about CFAC, which she didn't really know the name of. The Community Forest Advisory Committee. The way it works is each city council member is allowed to nominate a candidate to the to CFAC, and then that candidate has to be approved by the mayor's office, and then that candidate has to be approved by city council committee, the environment committee, and then has to go to the full city council for approval. So that can take a good bit of time, but we've had candidates for months at the mayor's office. We've also had some for months at the city council offices, but we've actually cracked that nut. Since I became chair, I focused on that because they changed our quorum requirement. Our quorum requirement is now the same as neighborhood councils. And that's apparently a Brown Act thing, but for 30 years, CFAC has been meeting with a majority computed as one more than half of the seated members. And if some city council members decide not to appoint someone to CFAC, that shouldn't affect CFAC's ability to conduct business. As it turns out, we were told that's wrong, that we have to have one more than half of the available seats. So given that, I jumped in and made sure that all the letters were written by the city council offices that needed to write letters. In fact, they had chosen people, but hadn't written the letters. So we got those letters to the mayor's office, and some of them were already there. Some of them I got them. Now every single city council office has nominated at least a representative, except for CD6. So Lionel, Kathy, if you're on this call, see if you can find somebody that makes sense to serve on CFAC in your area if you two are too busy to do it. But we would like to have a CD6 representative. I don't mean to spend this much time on CFAC, but really we have, supposedly according to Hydee, we have some power, but according to urban forestry, we have none. So it's really, it'll be really interesting to have this meeting and find out whether we do. I mean, my councilman called me Krikorian when he appointed me and gave me some marching orders, like he would like to see 100% native trees planted. Meanwhile, urban forestry planted 55 in our neighborhood that were non-native, and this is after our neighborhood council said we wanted 100% native planted in our neighborhood council area. So there's cross purposes. The good news is I sent out Rachel Malarich's results of the workshops, and that she gave that report to the Board of Public Works, and it was a great report. She included that she's going to write in enforcement into her urban forestry management plan that she's writing. And interestingly, the one thing she left out was biodiversity, and one of the commissioners said you must include biodiversity. So that whole meeting was really great. I sent it to a link to every member of the Trees Committee. It's the Board of Public Works on March 8th, and it's about 48 minutes into the meeting that you can hear Rachel's 35-minute report and the commissioner's feedback. So that getting to our agenda for our next meeting, it's been suggested that other places do drone private property tree inventory, and we'd like to explore that approach because 85% of our trees our tree canopy is on private property, and we have no a way except with the LiDAR canopy that tree people did a few years ago. Maybe by now it's 8 years ago. We don't have a current inventory of the property trees. And we'll talk about tree issues that have occurred with the current administration, and we're going to postpone our letter writing campaign and our postcards to September, when the Congress takes place, because we think that's the best way to distribute those, and we have to figure out a way to finance the postcards. So, but I think a multitude of voices will help the city make trees more of a priority. Thank you for giving me this time.
All right. Thank you. I think the only announcement I have is our next meeting, I think, is going to be May 19th. And as I think I said earlier, I'm hoping we'll do either something on bioswales and other things along those lines, or ED1. I'm not sure which, because I'm kind of hung up on waiting for the city for both of those things. I think that's my only announcement, but I'm sure others of you have announcements. So now is your time. Oh, Joanne, did you want to say something?
Yeah, on your calendar, you're listed as the Sunday before, and that's
I
how
need to
why.
change that. Yeah,
Oh,
because
you
that's
did-
Mother's Day. That's normally when we do it. I mean, that's our second Sunday, so I have to change that. Thank you.
That means our meeting's the day before yours. I hope that's okay. Two in a row. I mean,
It's up.
otherwise I have to do it the day before Memorial. I have to do it on Memorial Day weekend. I'll figure it out. I'll kind of, maybe I'll poll the trees committee and see what people want. I hear you. You can't do it on Mother's Day, but
Yeah, I can't do it on Mother's Day.
I may move. So the one I announced for the 18th, I may move it to Memorial Day weekend. I don't know. Just depends.
Okay. Yeah, I should have, maybe I should have moved it earlier. I probably should have, but there are many things I should be doing sooner than I do it. So
Sorry.
there's that.
We'll figure it out, but that May 18th may stick for me, or it may not. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but
Okay.
okay. I could also,
Every year, though, every May, I mean, Mother's Day is always the second Sunday, and so always I have to move that one. So maybe I should just do it earlier, but I
right,
always.
and also I could move mine to, since we meet bi-monthly, I could move mine to June 1st, which is a Saturday. You know, it'd be the Saturday after Memorial Day. So don't take that date to heart. Let me think about that. I think maybe June 1st will make more sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay, other announcements, folks? I'm sure Glenn is probably here and probably has an announcement. I always feel a little void when I don't hear Glenn making an announcement.
Thanks. I actually put it in chat.
Oh.
So the mayor is tomorrow going to be having her State of the City address. She'll probably give broad outlines on her new budget for next fiscal year. And then by the following Monday, April 22nd, she required to release it to the city council. So last year she was a few days early, but we hear it's going to be the 20th. It's normally the 20th, but it's a weekend. Anyway, and then the city council will start deliberating it. The neighborhood council budget advocates have selected Saturday, April 27th, 1 p.m. to do every year we do a town hall on the budget. It's an overview, broad overview. Sometimes we get representatives of the mayor's office, sometimes CAO. And we always have, our own folks. So anyway, if you're on neighborhood council, you get that. I put the link to the budget advocates website so you can check that out. So April 27th, 1 p.m. via Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Melanie.
Yeah, I just wanted to draw everybody's attention to a report that came out since our last meeting, which Wes actually put a link to in the chat. It's really easy to read. The main report is about 20 pages long, plus 40 pages of appendices and references and stuff. But this estimate on the costs that the county will have to invest on climate it's a great succinct report. It's for the county, but it does in many cases break it down by municipality. In particular, City of Los Angeles is pulled out for what they're going to have to invest on a number of different issues. So it's a great reference guide. Just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. It's still open on my computer. I haven't gotten any further than that, but from when Melanie shared it, I don't remember when. But you did say, Melanie, that it talks about the costs of inaction, which excites me because my whole thing is I want the city to factor in the costs of that, the social cost of carbon, some people call it, or shadow carbon pricing, that kind of thing. Like, let's talk about that. And let's factor that in when we're talking about costs of things, when we're considering, you know, the price of something, when we're making decisions about what we buy, let's factor that in, which the city does not do, and which some other much further ahead cities like Vancouver, Portland, Minneapolis are starting to do, like places in, I think the whole country of Norway is starting to do that. So of course we are not doing it, and we should be.
Right, and there's also data that's out there, that's been out there, been reaffirmed and reaffirmed numerous times on how much more you spend after a disaster, cleaning up after a disaster, than there's like 6 to 7 times as much money. So, you know, training for decision makers on, we're talking budget and priorities on that sort of thing as well, and finding ways to factor that in.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds like it's easy to read, but of course you also said that game was easy to play, and Charles told us it's
No,
not
I
easy to play. So
I love that game, and I think it's exciting to play. Dave, for those who don't know, but this is simple. It is a nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for throwing me under the bus, Lisa.
I'm sorry, but I just couldn't resist. That was just too good of an opportunity.
You'll have to try it yourself. All right. Niche, it's if you go up to chat, Niche, a few to Wes's link there, Los Angeles County Climate Cost Study. It was released about 10 days ago.
All right.
Thank you.
Stacy.
Hi, I'm so glad I got to come back, Lisa. Thank you. I'm not on an NC anymore, so I miss this group.
You don't have to be on an NC. You cannot use that as an excuse. You can always.
I will not. I will be here.
Okay.
For those who don't know me from my involvement with the Sustainability Alliance before I came to work for the city attorney, the developers guidelines are definitely something that we could all work on and improve and update. And I was serious about the comments before. We've got zero carbon, we've got the gas, we've got a lot of things that we could put in there. That I'd love to see this document as a living document get updated. I do hand it out to developers. I do hand it out, more importantly, to their representatives. While they may not all follow what's in there because it's voluntary, it has effectuated some changes in a lot of West Side developments. So if anyone's interested, take a look at it and let us know, Lisa and I, where you think you can contribute, and let's get some meetings going to update this. I think there's an absence in the market of this. It gets community buy-in at NCs. It gets more members of the community voting yes on developments, unless, I hate acronyms, NIMBYism, as we're planning for additional housing. And I'd like to stress that it really provides a lot of very creative ways that developments in less green communities can get more green and get needs met, from community gardens to other features that we've included in there. Last but not least, going back to my job at the city attorney, working on an NC on planning and land use, my work in sustainability, and my work for tenants. I was a tenant advocate and a low affordable housing advocate, and got very involved with developers. I belong to the Council of Infill Builders. I believe our tenants are a priority in this city and should be. I was very fortunate that Hydee Feldstein Soto had met me through my NC work and said, come work for me. Your job is tenants, tenants, tenants. Now I'm doing a lot of administrative and municipal code revisions. I work on a lot of task force in coordination with the mayor's homeless task force. We're all working a lot of hours, but quite a few of you on this meeting have had personal interaction with me by virtue of the fact that you knew me and you reached out to me so I could help protect tenants in this city and take action. Our ACE team is heavily involved in issues that have not been attended to regarding those who are fragilely housed and the complaints. Our city attorney was not lying when she said she's willing to come back and willing to answer questions. She is transparent. She wants to be public forward. And by virtue of the fact that she's giving me this job, we are also very, very adamantly focusing on tenants and issues that tenants are facing. If you have a question regarding those issues that are under my domain involving tenancy, substandard housing complaints that for years have not been addressed by any department in the city, where particularly it affects health and safety of your constituents. My address was provided. I can let you know if I'm overwhelmed and can't handle it and what we're prioritizing, but I'd encourage everybody to reach out to me. I owe my work in this group and my work on the NC for my job. And I don't forget where I came from, and I'm continuing through on the work that I've always done. So you have an ally in the city attorney's office. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you need assistance or you have questions. If I can't answer or help you, if there's someone else in our office who can, I'll redirect it. And I also will be brutally honest if we can't help you. So I just wanted to put that out there. And Lisa, you know, it's always wonderful seeing you, but there's no glass of wine that we're sharing. So I'm kind of missing that. But it was great being at the meeting tonight. Thank you for asking, Heidi, and Lisa, thank you for having me. Good night, everyone.
And Stacy, I'm actually going to email you. I was trying to email you before this meeting, but I had a really interesting conversation with Philip Armstrong, who is the president of the Rampart Village Neighborhood Council, and I'm going to email you something about what he's put together. And I'm going to email Streffen, who turns out is a...
You met him.
I did, and it turns out I've known him for a while because, did he tell you?
He did.
Okay, so anyway, yeah. It's a very small town. So anyway, yeah.
This is sustainability, but I'm going to throw this out there. After all my years with the NC system, we have a sustainability alliance. We have alliances for groups of NCs. What we don't have is an alliance for tenants' rights.
Well, there actually is. There almost is, kind of, but not good enough. Yeah.
That would be a more cohesive way to communicate with the council, the mayor, and our office to back up a lot of, Lisa's going to probably laugh, of what I'm obsessed with and talk about all the time, which are glitches in our processes that is really not paying the attention to some of the tenant issues that we're facing that I think contributes to the homeless situation. And if we had an alliance that were representing tenants in the city, I think we could bring some of these issues to the forefront, and I'm saying that personally because I'm so invested in this. Putting more people on the street is what we all want to avoid. We want sustainable, clean, habitable apartments for those who are renters, and they deserve nothing less. And I would like to see more cohesion through the NC system if we can do it, to get tenants together, not in a performative manner, not in an adversarial manner, but truly getting to those in the city to get the cases I work on are horrible. And I will bring them to the council, and we've got lots coming up. And I get this, oh my God, I didn't know this was happening. How do you not know? And the way we get our council, our mayor, and all of our electeds informed is getting something together where we're all on the same page and getting the rights protected, preventing displacement, and feet on the ground at your NCs, hearing about what is the byproduct of it, more development. Is it sustainable? Is it displacing people? What are the problems we need to address? Because as you can imagine, at City Hall, I've only been there for a year, and I always wanted to be there because I'd take a hammer and I'd break up everything and do it the right way. It doesn't work that way. If you don't really bring them the problems and spell it out in a cohesive manner, they're not going to get it. You can't assume they understand what we're all dealing with. I bring carbon zero. Cement carbon zero is one of my passions in life. And I will tell you, there's not a council member who knew what I was talking about. So when it comes to tenants, which is my passion, I'm just going to throw that out there, talk to your NCs, and if we could get something together, I think we could make a difference. And Lisa, thank you for letting me make those comments. It has nothing to do with, you know, what we came here for tonight, but I think
It
it's
has
really
everything to do with what we came for. So I'm glad. In fact, I meant to mention some of that in my introductory comments, and I was so rushed that I didn't. So thank you for saying it
Thank you
now.
for accommodating, Heidi. I appreciate it. It was good seeing everyone. Good night.
Good night, Stacy. All right, Ji Young.
I don't know if this has been discussed in any committee yet, but I just heard on the news that Southern California is the largest emitter of sulfuric sulfuryl fluoride, which is used in termite pesticides,
Oh.
and it California emits up to 12% of the global total of this chemical, which is apparently like really, really, really bad, like worse than other chemicals, I mean. So something we might want to address in the future.
Oh dear. I have enough things to worry about. I have to add something to my list, huh? Oh dear. No, I've not heard a thing. And my house, my building is totally termite ridden.
I'll drop the LA Times story last week. I'll drop that in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Oh, and Wes, is that something about it? Okay, thank you, Wes, because yeah, okay, thank you. I'm like, thank you begrudgingly. Okay, Aurora.
Yeah, I just want to, this is just a fun thing. I wanted to invite everyone to the third annual Bike Safety Camp and Earth Day event happening in Pico Union. And it's at a small element, well, it's not small, it's a larger size elementary school, huge ground. We do a full bike course. We give out I think so far we have about 50 bikes that we're going to be donating and raffling out to the young kids from the neighborhood. And they do get like an educational course. The CHP comes, shows them how to ride their bike safely. And we're also having an environmental sustainability mini resource fair. Our organization will be there. Ciclavia is going to be there. Metro Shares coming. LA San Tristan's coming. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you have time, it's on Saturday, the 27th. Also the same day as the budget advocates, but it's from 10 to 1. But I think the budget advocates is right after that. So you're welcome to come down. It's near City Hall, so it'll all be connected. I'm going to put, I actually am going to put it in the just the flyer in the chat. I think I did it, but the tab moved down. So I only send it to Alex, right? Yeah, I'm going to share with you on that. So really a nice event. So everyone's invited.
All right. Well,
Lastly,
thank
I'll
you.
just say that the youth are doing their annual climate strike at City Hall on Friday at like 11 to 2. If anybody wants to come down and support the youth, and there'll be a bike bus component of that where kids from 3 or 4 schools are biking from school to the climate strike. So
cool.
Want to support the youth? Come on down Friday.
Sorry, quickly, I think that's 12 to 1, not 11 to 1.
I think the show is 12 to 2, but I know the bike strikes are planning to get there by 11-ish. So yeah, anyway, easy, anywhere between 11 and 2. Come on downtown. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. I learned a ton tonight. I imagine we all did. That was a lot of information. A lot to absorb. I mean, whether or not you agree with our city attorney, you have to admit the smart cookie. And the truth is, she's I think, she's like implementing policy. She's not necessarily like setting policy. So it's kind of I mean, to me, that's a gray area. Is Stacy still here? Or did she leave? I think that's a little complicated. Anyway, dodge the Brown Act question. Did she? So to be honest, I'm navigating a lot of stuff, so I wasn't able to always focus when I wanted to. But anyway, great meeting. I thought it was a great meeting. I learned a lot. I'm going to try to listen to the recording so I can reabsorb everything. Thank you folks for coming, and have a wonderful night, and to be continued.
Thanks, Lisa. A lot of great work.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.